If you have architects, you need this expansion. It is that good. Hi everyone, welcome to another Beyond the Base Game review where I'm talking about Age of Artisans. This is the expansion, the only expansion currently, to Architects of the West Kingdom. There will be a second expansion, I know this, but apart from that, no other details. I think they're going to do a Kickstarter for it as well as a big box storage solution later in this year, but for now they're worrying about Paladins of the West Kingdom, so let them finish that first and then they'll get onto Architects. So what do you get? Well, first off, as you can see, yep, I've pimped my copy out a bit. That is a folded space insert, which I do use. And like I say, I'm definitely a big plug for them at the moment because I've acquired a bunch of them and I'm hoping to get some more in the future. So, you know, definitely on board with that. So much so, I've even pimped up this copy with, from Board Game Extras, pieces of marble. You know, check out their website. They're UK based, they're local to me, but they got pieces of marble that I can have. Much better than a piece of wood. But as I say, that's just me pimping the game up. So, for starters, you got another player. You can play this with 6 players. And at first, I thought, oh no, I hate adding players. That's so stupid. I don't need more players. Who would want to play this with more players? I was kind of surprised, actually. I played a 6-player game of this, every colour used. The game still finished within about 90 minutes to 2 hours. A 6-player game of this. You know, yes, you can finish it in shorter time with less, but for 2 hours max, including teaching, to finish a 6-player game of this, and the downtime wasn't even that bad because the turns are very quick. You know, you've got just about enough time to figure out what you're going to do, but once people get into the swing of it, it's just worker, get me stone, worker, get me wood, go to prison, get my workers, go to tax stand, get my money. It comes back round to you relatively quickly, and I actually found this was a solid 5 to 6 player game. Not the first choice I would take, but if we've got 5 or 6 players in the same room and we want to play a Euro game, I've now got another one that I might consider. But aside from it being orange, you now have an extra character. You can play this on a base side, or you can play it, in fact, I don't know why I've only bought 1 sheet out, because you have 2 orange characters. Yes, you get 2 for the price of 1. There you go. There she is, Gazella. But you can play them on their normal side, but frankly, who does that? Seriously, play it with the special abilities. But one of them makes your Artisan more powerful, basically makes it count as an extra worker, and the other one means that when you take red tool cards, they get the bonus of the yellow bonus on top. What on earth am I talking about? We'll get onto that. But essentially, it's 2 more characters. They work with the expansion elements, so you can't use these unless you're using the expansion content, but trust me, you'll want the expansion content. But more characters, not going to complain. What it primarily does, though, is well, should I get onto that now? Let's get onto simple bits first. It does add more buildings. You get another 12 buildings in there, essentially like an ark, a dormitory, a storehouse, a garrison. Same as before, they work under the same rules. They're just more buildings, more variety, never a bad thing. You've also got more apprentices, another 12 apprentices, strongmen, traders, antagonists, enforcers, abbot, even a new version of the pickpocket, which gives you extra money for going to the tax stand, as if you needed any more money for going to the tax stand. But some of these work with the artisan extra in this. We'll get onto that later. The strongmen particularly do that, but the others are, yeah, they work with the base game. So you've got 2 extra types of trader. You've got a lookout who counts as an extra worker at the guardhouse. The antagonist counts as an extra worker at the town center. And the enforcer is all about when you dump people in prison, you get an extra bonus. I love the enforcer in this game. I love getting 2 or 3 of these enforcers and basically arresting everybody, dumping them in prison and getting lots of cool stuff. May not be the most optimal strategy sometimes, but it's definitely one of my more fun ones. But let's get on to the real meat of this expansion, right there, because that is kind of simple additions. More variety, more cool stuff. Now, you've got this extra board. It replaces the score track on the main board. You just basically cover it up. And it's the same deal. You put your meeples in there and you lay them down in order to build to the cathedral or build the building cards. But there's another thing you can do here, and it revolves around this deck of cards. The tool and improvement cards. They're the same thing though. But the idea is that when you place a meeple here first, you build cathedral or a building card. But then if you've got something here, then you can put another meeple on top of one you've already laid down, so you effectively stack up. And again, it's out of the game forever. But but it allows you to either get a tool card for free or pay 5 money, some of which is taxed, to get the yellow improvement. So what on earth are they? It revolves around these, and this is a very simple addition to the game, but it just adds such a good amount of extra variety. It's a card with a red border and a yellow border. Yellow on the top, red on the bottom. And you have to decide whether you're using the improvement or the tool, depending on whether you paid the money for it. Now, the improvements are very straightforward. They have a bonus at the top, so in this case I've got, 2 extra green cards. Trigger a bonus again. Reset the apprentice board and pick an apprentice for free. Get 2 virtue, get rid of a debt, get 3 green cards, lose 2 virtue because it's worth a lot of points, get some stone, get some bricks, etc. So, but what they are is that you take a building card that you've already made, and you take the yellow card and you slot it underneath so that the yellow border shows above the building. You get the bonus as a one-off immediately, and you get the extra points, which can usually range from about 1 to 4, but in some cases like this one, it's a 6-point card if you're willing to take a slight negative bonus instead of a bonus. But that's all these are. But what this does for the yellow border specifically is one of the minor flaws I had with the base game is that when you got a lot of money, you didn't really have a lot to do with it. It's like, what do I do with all this money that I've got from dumping people in prison? 5 money to spend on improvements is a good way to use that money up, and 2 of it is tax. So if you're low virtue, you can discount a lot of that anyway. But if you're swimming in money, go for the yellows, definitely worth it. But what's the red section? The red, and this is my favorite bit. Take let's take these 2 for example. Take your apprentice that you've already got. Let's take, let's say the lookout for example. And you take the red card and you slot it underneath the apprentice. And then what happens is every time you trigger the apprentice for whatever ability it had, you get the bonus on the bottom as well. So not only do you get a flexibility of what apprentices you have for their bonuses, you can tailor make them even more with the tool cards. So now if I take the lookout to the guardhouse, not only does he count as an extra worker, but I also get a brick. Okay, that's a fairly simple explanation, but let's see what other ones I could do with him, for example. There's one that lets me arrest a group of meeples. So every time I go to prison to dump meeples, I get to arrest another group of meeples. That could combo pretty well. But then there's simple stuff like an extra silver, an extra gold, some that give you all free symbols for constructing the buildings. You know, you need the axe and the paintbrush and that. Some let you, I'll lose a virtue to get a marble, that kind of thing. And on their own, they don't sound like great bonuses, but when you combo them with the right apprentices, they can be great. Imagine taking, say, the abbot, who when you have nobody in, sorry, not the abbot, the squire. When you have no one in prison, you get a marble, for example. And then you combo it with, say, the person who loses a virtue to get a marble. So every time the market resets, you get 2 marbles, actually, for the cost of a virtue. But then you could put it on the silversmith. Silversmith gets you an extra, like, silver when you go to the silversmith. Well, then put this tool underneath him that gets another silver. So suddenly your silversmith action is really, really good. And this is just one apprentice. You can put a tool on every apprentice you get, and you score points at the end of the game based on how many you have. You essentially get like a revised summary aid. It's got the reminders of how many cards you can have, storage for resources, but it tells you that the red cards score 1, 2, 4, 6, 9 points for having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tool cards. So it's another strategy you can go for. But it also mentions your artisan, and that's the last bit I need to talk about. I'll mention this a little bit very quick. This card, you replace the second space on the black market with this, and basically all it does is that, as well as being able to do what you could do originally, which was pay 2 and lose a virtue to get an apprentice or look through the deck of building cards, you can also get a tool card. That's all it does. It just basically expands the black market a little bit. But the artisan, what on earth is the artisan? Well, in your group of meeples, you now have this giant meeple, far bigger than the other meeples that you have. This is your artisan, and I hope I'm pronouncing that word right, but, you know, don't quote me. This is something that this guy I already mentioned makes more powerful, but basically it's a very simple inclusion. When you place this meeple down, it counts as 2. So if I put it straight on the forest on the first turn, it gets me 2 wood instead of 1. If I put it on the prison as the first meeple, then not only do I get to dump people in prison, but I can also, because it counts as 2, take my meeples out of prison, for example. The crux of this though is that once it's done its thing, it counts as 1 meeple after that. So you put it down in the forest and get 2 wood. If you then follow up with another meeple, it then only counts as 1, so you're still only getting 2 wood. It's kind of like a quick boost action, and then it reverts back to normal until you retrieve them and then put them down again. So you could have an idea where you're constantly rounding up your meeples with the artisan in place so that you can constantly put the artisan down and do cool stuff with it. And as I said, it counts as 2. If you use this character, it counts as 3. So your artisan becomes really good and you really want to get the artisan back as often as possible. And I mentioned Gazella earlier. When you take a tool card, you also get the yellow bonus at the top, not the points, but the bonus as you take the tool card. I really like these 2 characters and I really like using them. And that's essentially all that the expansion adds. So not a huge amount of extra additions, but not particularly complex either. You know, if you already know how to do buildings in the cathedral and the apprentices, is it really that hard just to add this little deck of cards to say, well, if you've got buildings, then you can improve them for more points. And if you have apprentices, you can improve them for more abilities. That's all this deck is. You have a tableau of 4 of them that you can pick from. You could ignore these the entire game. You could literally say, you know what, I'm not interested in the tools and the improvements. I don't recommend you ignore them entirely. I recommend you get at least 1 or 2 of each. But it depends what you're doing. I mean, if you're going full-on cathedral, you're not going to use improvements, period. But certainly you're going to have apprentices, so you're probably going to want a tool or 2. But you don't have to go like maximum on there. I mean, I love having 5 apprentices with 5 tools kitted out. You know, that's one way to score 9 points as well as have some awesome apprentices. But of course, you got to get points in other sense. But to teach this on top of the normal game, easy. Easy, easy peasy. Not a problem at all. You know, actually, it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience if you're a pitch meetings fan. But you know, that's all it is. These are just like extra like summary reference sheets. This isn't even part of the Artisans expansion. I just wanted to show off the insert and the marble I've got for it. But you just throw these buildings in with the mix. You just throw these apprentices in with the mix. And all you have to do is just cover up the bit with this track, add this deck, and go into what these 2 characters would refer to. Other than that, that's all the expansion adds in terms of complexity, but what it does for the game is so good. It changes up how many options you have. You now have another point scoring opportunity. You can now custom make your apprentices in so many other cool ways. You now have a use for all that money you had before, because 1 point for every 10 money. If you're trying to get lots of points from that, then you're really playing this game wrong. But if I've got something like 15 money because I've just dumped a horde of meeples in prison, well, that's free improvements if I go grab them, as long as I've been getting the buildings. So it just adds extra options, and that's the kind of expansion I want. Not a ton more complexity. I don't need a million extra rules to teach. I just want more of the good stuff, but maybe with some variation. And that's exactly what this does. More of the good stuff, slight variation on the rules. But other than that, I will throw this into every game I play, without fail. If I'm teaching you this game brand new, this goes in, because I don't think it makes the game any harder to teach from already learning the base game, but it really elevated Architects. I mean, Architects I think was already a 9 or a 10 when I first reviewed it. This certified it into the top 20 of my top 100. That's how good this expansion is. I look forward to see what the next expansion does. However, don't make it too much, don't add too much complexity. I'm worried that the next expansion is going to be one that I won't teach with the base game. I don't know, just please Garphill Games, just give me more buildings, give me more apprentices, give me more of these. Don't overcomplicate this game, because one of the great things about it is the fact that it is a fairly simple worker placement game compared to a lot out there, yet gives you a decent amount of variety and options without being too complex and without being too long. That's another thing. Do not add like another 30 minutes game time to this, because that will really irk me. But yeah, I love this one. I mean, the Artisans expansion is effectively a must buy. 10 out of 10. If you have Architects, you need this expansion. It is that good. And so that's it for another Beyond the Base Game episode. I hope you like what you see. Let me know in the comments what your experiences with Architects and Artisans is. Are you looking forward to another expansion, or are you a little bit worried like I am? But until next time, take care, and remember, as always, it's only a game. Bye for now.